This is not a wave. This is something waking up. For thousands of years, humans believed the sea only held mysteries, but no one truly knew. There was a pact between the mountain and the sea to hold something back, to keep it asleep. And now that pact has failed. In an age when mountains were still believed to be the guardians of the world, and the sea was thought to hold the secrets of the gods, there was a kingdom that stood between the two. That kingdom was never recorded in any book of history. No single name was ever truly agreed upon. Some called it a kingdom blessed by the earth. Others called it a kingdom that stood too close to something that should never be touched by human hands. The mountain behind it was always calm. The sea before it was always still. Too still. And sometimes a silence that is too perfect. Is a sign that something is waiting for its time. The kingdom prospered. Its land was fertile. Its harvests never failed. Fishermen always returned with boats full. But the elders knew. Fortune like that never comes without a price. Every year, they performed a ritual at a great stone on the edge of a sea cliff. The stone was called the Stone of the Covenant. It was said to have existed long before the kingdom was built. No one knew who placed it there. But the elders always told the king one thing: as long as the covenant is kept, the mountain will remain asleep, and the sea will remain still. Time passed. Kings changed. Generations faded into new ones. And, like many things in human history, the most important things are often the first to be forgotten. The ritual became rare. the priests began to doubt the old stories. Some even started to believe that the covenant was nothing more than a legend meant to frighten the people, the keeper of the stone. But there was one man who never stopped believing. An old man who lived alone by the cliff. He always said, That stone is not a symbol. It's a key. The wind changed. The mountain, which for centuries had shown no sign of life, began to make a sound. Not an eruption. Not a rumble. But something deep, like movement far beneath the earth. People thought it was just a minor tremor. But the stone keeper knew something was awakening. He saw something that froze his blood. A small crack. Appeared on the surface of the stone of the covenant. Three days later, the mountain erupted. Not just lava. Not just fire. But the very ground around the kingdom began to collapse. The earth split open. The palace cracked. Towers fell one by one, and in a very short time, the kingdom was gone. Not destroyed, but swallowed by the earth. After that, the mountain fell silent again, as if nothing had ever happened. And slowly, the world forgot the kingdom. Centuries passed. The mountain remained silent. But fishermen in the south began reporting something strange. The sea would sometimes tremble. Massive waves appeared without storms. And sometimes, on certain nights, the ocean seemed to breathe. Village elders began to remember the old stories about the lost kingdom, about the covenant stone, and about something sleeping beneath the sea. On a stormy night, lightning struck the ocean. And for a brief moment, the fishermen saw something within the waves. Something too large to be called a sea creature. Something moving very slowly. as if it had just awakened from a very long sleep. The next day, the shore revealed something never seen before. A giant scale, larger than a boat, and black, like mountain stone. The elders finally realized something terrifying. The mountain that swallowed the kingdom might not have been a disaster. It might have been a prison for something that should never awaken. And the kingdom may have been the sacrifice that kept it sealed. But now, the sea is moving. The covenant stone is cracked, and the mountain trembles once more. The legends always said that when the three signs appear together, the sleeping mountain, the cracked stone, and the awakening sea, then something far older than any kingdom will return. Not as legend, not as story, but as something truly real. And perhaps that is why the kingdom once had to disappear from the world. Because they knew something that was never truly told to us. That beneath the southern sea, there is still something that has not yet fully awakened. Some say the sea is just water. But the old fishermen know the sea is a place where many things are buried without ever truly dying. After the giant scale was found on the shore, villages along the southern coast began to feel the change. Sometimes the water became too warm, sometimes too cold. And on certain nights, they began to hear something, a sound they had never heard before. Not the sound of waves, not the sound of wind, but something very deep, like something moving slowly beneath thousands of meters of water. An old fisherman said, "That is not the sound of the sea. That is the sound of something waking up." In a small village almost forgotten, lived an old woman. She was a descendant of the last keeper of the covenant stone. 4 years Her family had kept a story they never told anyone about the night the kingdom disappeared, about something that did not come from the sea, but was imprisoned within it. According to her family's story, the creature once tried to awaken thousands of years ago, and humanity was not strong enough to fight it. So they did the only thing they could. They made a covenant with the earth and the sea and the kingdom. Was part of that covenant. The long silent mountain began to make a sound again. Not like before. This time it was deeper. Slower. Like a colossal heart beating inside the earth. The ground around the mountain began to crack. Forests on its slopes fell silent. Animals left first. And the people who lived nearby began to feel something they could not explain. The feeling that the earth was preparing for something. On a stormy night, 3 fishing boats went out to sea. Only one returned. The surviving fishermen said something that froze the entire village. They saw something in the storm, something larger than a small island. Oteti, first. They thought it was a mountain rising from the sea. But then the mountain moved slowly. And when lightning tore across the sky, they saw something they would never forget. Opening within the waves. An eye. The old woman finally revealed the truth her family had kept hidden. The kingdom that was swallowed by the earth was not merely a victim. They were wardens. Wardens of a prison. A prison for a being known in ancient legends as the first sea giant. A creature that existed before humanity knew the ocean. A creature that could not be killed. A creature that could only be put to sleep. And to keep it asleep. 3 things were required. The mountain as the seal. The covenant stone as the key. And the kingdom as the guardian. But now, all 3 were beginning to fail. The night the sea parted. On a moonless night, something happened in the southern sea. The ocean suddenly receded far into the distance. Shorelines turned into empty land. Fish were stranded. Coral lay exposed, and in the distance, the sea looked like a vast black fracture. Then the sound came. A sound so deep, the earth itself trembled. The sound of something that had finally opened its eyes. People on the shore saw something far away, a massive shadow moving beneath the surface. Not like a whale, not like anything ever known. Too large. Too long. Too long. Too ancient. The waves rose again. But this time, they carried something with them. Fragments of ancient stone. Stone from the lost kingdom. As if the sea was returning. What it had once taken. The old legends always end with the same line. When the sea begins to move, it does not mean the creature has fully awakened. It means only one thing. That something which has slept for thousands of years has begun to remember the world. And when it truly awakens, the world may remember. Why the kingdom had to be swallowed. After the night the sea pulled away from the shore, nothing ever truly returned to normal. The waves came back. The wind returned. But something had changed. Fishermen began to share the same dream. A dream of a vast, endless ocean. Of darkness without a bottom. And within that darkness, something slowly moving. Not swimming. Not walking. But awakening. In their dreams, they heard a voice. A voice without language. Yet, somehow, everyone understood the same thing. Something beneath the ocean was calling the world to remember it. In an old coastal city, Inside a library on the verge of collapse, a researcher discovered something unusual: an ancient map. It was not a map of kingdoms, not a map of trade routes, but a map that revealed a vast fracture in the floor of the Southern Sea. At the center of the map, there was a symbol, the same symbol once carved into the covenant stone. And at the bottom of the map, there was a small inscription, nearly erased by time. It read, "If the stone should crack, then the sea will open its path. And when the sea opens its path, something from a time before humanity will once again see the sky." Days later, a research vessel passed over the Southern Sea. Using sonar, they scanned the depths. At first, normal. Then something impossible appeared. A shape, too large to be a creature, too irregular to be a mountain. But the most terrifying part, it was moving. Slowly, very slowly, as if something that had slept too long was remembering how to move. In the oldest village along the southern coast, the elders finally decided to reveal the secret they had kept for so long. A secret about something even older than the Lost Kingdom. They said that long before humans ever lived along those shores, the sea was already inhabited by something. Something that does not live like ordinary creatures. It does not eat. It does not hunt. It only sleeps. For a very long time. But every few thousand years, it tries to awaken. And each time it does, the human civilizations around that sea disappear. The mountain that once swallowed the kingdom showed new signs. Massive fractures spread across its slopes. Thin smoke rose from within. But one detail confused the tremors did not come entirely from the earth. Some came from the sea. As if something in the depths was pulling the mountain from afar, as if the mountain itself was only a lid, covering something far greater. On a silent night, the sky above the southern sea suddenly changed. Dark clouds gathered without a storm. Lightning appeared without rain. And the sea began to tremble again. But this time, it wasn't only the fishermen who saw it. People along the coastline witnessed something in the distance. Something rising from beneath the water. Not entirely. Only a small part. A massive back. Larger than a small island. The old legends say one terrifying truth. The being beneath the southern sea can never truly be killed, only put to sleep. That is why the ancient kingdom made a covenant with earth and sea, not to destroy it, but to delay it. But every covenant has a limit, and every prison eventually cracks. Ships began avoiding the southern waters. But one night, a small fishing boat witnessed something they would never forget. The water around their vessel suddenly rose. Not because of waves, but because something beneath the surface was slowly rising upward. The sea around them began to swirl. And beneath the boat, they saw something that froze them in place. A massive eye, opening within the water. Many still believe all of this is nothing more than fishermen's tales. Just legend. Just myth. But the elders of that ancient village know something different. Is not the end of the legend. They know that what is happening now, this is only the beginning of the true awakening. Because the being that sleeps beneath the southern sea has not yet fully awakened. And when it finally opens its eyes completely, the world may once again remember. Why? That ancient kingdom had to be sacrificed. After the night, the giant eye was seen beneath the fishing boat. The coastal villages began to change. No one truly saw the creature again. But the sea never returned to what it once was. The waves came in strange rhythms, sometimes too calm, sometimes too violent. And on certain nights, the ocean produced a deep sound, a sound like a vast breath. The oldest fishermen began to say something they had never said before. The sea, Tita si is breathing. And if the sea has begun to breathe, then something within it has truly begun to awaken. Meanwhile, on the mountain that once swallowed the kingdom, researchers made a startling discovery. Within one of the massive fractures, they found an ancient stone chamber. The chamber was not formed by nature. Its walls were carved. Its floor was laid with great slabs of stone. At the center of the room, there was a circular formation of ancient symbols, the same symbol once seen on the stone of the covenant. At the center of that circle, but there was one detail that sent a chill through everyone. There were traces of something that had once stood there, something that was now gone. As if the key to the prison had been taken away by time. Inside the chamber, they found something very old, a stone tablet. The writing upon it had almost faded away, but parts of it could still be read. It was believed to be the final record of the Lost Kingdom's keeper. The inscription read, "If one day this stone should crack, and the mountain can no longer hold it, then the sea will call back what we once imprisoned. We did not defeat it. We only put it to sleep. And one day, it will try to awaken again." Along the southern coastline, the waves began to change into something far more terrifying. At times, the sea became completely flat. Too flat. Too flat. As if the water itself had frozen. But hours later, massive waves would rise without any storm, towering like black walls. Scientists tried to explain the phenomenon, but no theory truly made sense. Because every time the waves appeared, The instruments beneath the sea showed the same results. Something enormous was moving beneath them. The old woman who carried the story of the lost kingdom finally decided to act. She walked to the sea cliff, where the covenant stone once stood. Now it was deeply fractured. Otetinite. The cracks glowed faintly. She reached out and touched the stone, and for the first time in centuries, the ancient ritual was performed once more. But as she completed it, the stone responded. A deeper cracking sound echoed, and the light within it grew stronger, as if something beneath the ocean could feel that the key to its prison was trying to be sealed again. The following night, every research vessel in the southern waters detected something extraordinary. Their sonar revealed a massive shape rising from the depths, not just moving, but ascending. Slowly, very slowly. Yet, its size, larger than anything ever recorded in the history of the sea. At first, scientists believed it was a malfunction. But then, weather satellites observed something at the ocean's surface, a colossal vortex. And the vortex was moving. On a moonless night, ships in the distance saw something rising from the sea. Not its full form, only a small part. A vast curved shape, like the back of a stone mountain. But it moved. Water streamed down from immense ancient scales. And when lightning tore across the sky, for a brief moment, the witnesses saw something they would never forget. An eye larger than a house. And that eye looked upon the sky for the first time in thousands of years. The old legends say the awakening of an ancient sea being never happens in a single night. It rises slowly, like a mountain in motion, like the earth breathing. And what has been seen so far may only be a small part of its body. Because if the creature were to fully awaken, the ocean itself would no longer be vast enough to hide it, and the world would finally understand why a kingdom once chose to vanish from the earth, just to keep it asleep. Several global research centers began to focus on the Southern Sea. Satellite imagery revealed something unusual. In the middle of the ocean, a massive vortex could be seen, slowly shifting. But the vortex did not form like a storm. There were no strong winds, no storm clouds. The vortex existed because the seawater seemed to be pulled downward from below. And with each passing day, its diameter continued to grow larger, as if something enormous was awakening from the depths of the ocean. The old woman, keeper of the kingdom's stories, finally realized something. The ancient ritual once performed by the kingdom had never truly been completed. The covenant stone was only half of the key. The other half was a ritual carried out on the mountain, a ritual that had not been performed since the kingdom vanished. If the ritual is not performed again, then the prison holding that ancient sea creature will continue to weaken. And one day, it will fully open. Several people decided to climb the ancient mountain, the mountain that once swallowed an entire kingdom. The journey to its peak was not easy. The forest surrounding it had grown eerily silent. No birds, no birds, no animals, as if all of nature had withdrawn from that place. When they reached one of the highest slopes, they saw something shocking. A massive crack in the mountain was emitting a faint red glow, a light that looked like the breath of the earth itself. Inside the mountain, they discovered an ancient stone chamber, far larger than anything previously found. Its walls were covered in carvings. Carvings of something immense, rising from the sea. Carvings of humans trying to hold it back. And at the center of the chamber stood a massive stone circle. A ritual circle once used to seal the prison of the ancient sea creature. But the circle was now cracked, as if the power that once held it was nearly gone. Meanwhile, in the southern sea, the night grew darker than usual. No moon, no stars, only a black sky above the ocean. And in that darkness, fishermen still out at sea saw something that made them tremble. The surface of the ocean began to rise, not because of waves, but because something beneath the water was slowly approaching the surface. Water began to stream down from something enormous, something that had finally begun to rise from its slumber. When lightning split the sky, the witnesses saw its form clearly. A massive arch rose from the sea. Its surface was covered in ancient black scales. The size of the arch was larger than a great ship, yet it was only a small part of its body, because when that section moved, the surrounding ocean trembled with it, as if the sea itself was too small to contain it. Now, more and more people are beginning to believe the old stories of a vanished kingdom, of the covenant stone, and of something that sleeps in the southern sea. Because what is being seen now is no longer just a legend. It is something real. And that awakening has only just begun. The morning after that colossal body was seen in the sea, the southern shores began to experience something unusual. The ocean rose far higher than normal. But it was not like a tsunami. The water did not surge violently. It rose slowly, as if the sea itself were being pulled by something from below. Fishermen who gazed toward the horizon said the distant waters looked strange, uneven, unsettled, but forming waves of an immense pattern, as if something was moving beneath it. Something far too large for the ocean to hide any longer. As night approached, the sky above the southern sea began to change. Dark clouds gathered without the coming of a storm. Lightning flickered along the horizon. Yet no rain fell. The wind grew bitterly cold, and the ocean began to produce a sound never before heard by humankind. A deep sound, a prolonged sound, like the roar of a creature that had just awakened from a slumber of thousands of years. Inside the mountain that once swallowed a kingdom, the small group who had ascended it finally attempted something long forgotten: the sealing ritual. A ritual once performed by the kingdom's guardians. They stood around an ancient circle of stone. A small fire was lit. Old prayers were spoken once more. But as the ritual neared its end, the mountain trembled violently. Cracks along the stone walls began to widen, and from within those fractures, a distant sound could be heard, a sound from the sea. Amid the storm that had begun to form, the southern sea finally revealed something long concealed. In one region, the water suddenly receded, not toward the shore, but out toward the open sea, as if something immense were rising from the depths. And when the water pulled away, something began to appear. No longer just a shadow, no longer merely a fragment of its body, but a colossal back, slowly emerging from the ocean. As lightning split the sky, the witnesses finally saw it clearly. The creature's surface was covered in massive black scales, each one larger than a fishing vessel. Seawater cascaded down its body like small waterfalls, and with even the slightest movement, great waves formed around it, as if the entire ocean moved with it. Then something happened. The creature's head slowly rose to the surface. The sea broke apart around it, and for the first time in thousands of years, it fully opened its eyes. Those colossal eyes reflected the lightning, and in a silent instant, they beheld the world. A world that had changed since the last time it awoke. As the creature rose further to the surface, massive waves began to form. They spread from the open sea toward the shore. Not just one, but many. like vast rings expanding in every direction. And the coastal villages finally realized something terrifying. The creature had truly awakened. Within the mountain, the ritual finally reached its end. But the guardians realized a bitter truth. The ritual was no longer strong enough. For the kingdom that had once been part of the pact had long since vanished. And without that kingdom, the prison of the ancient sea creature could never be fully sealed again. Now, the world begins to understand something once dismissed as mere story. The being that has risen from the southern sea is not simply a monster. It is something far older than human civilization. Something that beheld the world. Before humankind ever knew the ocean. And now, after thousands of years of slumber, it has finally returned. As the ancient sea creature rose further to the surface, something else began to respond. The ancient mountain that once swallowed a kingdom suddenly trembled with a force never before felt. The ground along its slopes cracked. Massive rocks collapsed from its peak. And from the crater that had lain silent for centuries, black smoke began to rise, as if the mountain had finally answered the call of the sea, as if those two ancient forces had awakened together at last. News of the colossal being in the southern sea began to spread. Research vessels, satellites, even reconnaissance aircraft, all sought to witness what was truly happening in the heart of the ocean. And the images they sent back to land left the entire world in silence, in the dark expanse of the sea. A massive body could be seen, partially rising above the water. Its full length was impossible to determine, as most of it remained submerged beneath the ocean. Yet even the visible portion alone was larger than a small island. The old legends were never just stories. Within the mountain, The guardians attempting the final ritual discovered something new. Beneath the ancient stone circle lay a hidden passage long concealed. The corridor stretched deep into the mountain, and at its end, they found a final chamber. At the center of the room stood something astonishing. A massive stone statue. A statue depicting the ancient sea creature. But beneath it, there were ancient inscriptions. Writings that revealed the final truth. The creature did not come from the sea alone. It came from an age. When the earth was still young, the ancient inscriptions revealed something even more astonishing. The lost kingdom was not merely a guardian. It was the final sacrifice. The kings and priests of that kingdom knew that one day, the ancient sea creature would attempt to awaken again. And when that day came, the only way to restrain it was to sacrifice the kingdom itself. The mountain became the seal. The kingdom became the binding. And the covenant stone became the key. But now, all of it has been eroded by time. In the southern sea, the storm had now grown immense. Lightning struck without pause. Colossal waves collided with one another. And at the heart of the storm, the ancient being rose higher than ever before. Its neck emerged from the water. Its head lifted toward the sky. Its body resembled a living mountain, moving across the ocean. And for the first time in thousands of years, the creature let out a sound. A sound so immense that even the mountain trembled. Now, no one considers it a legend anymore. The creature is real, and its scale is far too vast to be stopped by any conventional means. Every movement it makes creates new waves. Every breath it takes stirs the storm. And if it moves toward land, no city could withstand it. The world finally came to a terrifying realization. That lost ancient kingdom may have been protecting the world for thousands of years. Within the mountain's hidden chamber, the Guardians discovered something that might be the last hope. An ancient mechanism. A massive stone system connected to the ritual circle above. If it were activated, the mountain might collapse once more and seal whatever lay beneath it. But it would mean one thing. The mountain would have to fall again, just as it when the kingdom was sacrificed long ago. The Guardians realized something. History might repeat itself. Thousands of years ago, a kingdom had to vanish to keep the world safe. And now, someone may have to make the same choice. Because the creature that has risen from the sea will not stop on its own. Some legends never truly end. They simply stop being told for a time. The kingdom swallowed by the earth. The ancient sea creature, and the pact forged between humankind and the old world. All are part of the same story. A story of how humanity once tried to contain something far older than itself. And perhaps that story is not over yet for the Southern Sea. Remains unfathomably deep. And the world is still filled with secrets. That have yet to fully awaken.